actually. Yeah. It's gone quiet already. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Waterstones, I would like to welcome you to this evening's event in the atmospheric St James's Church, Piccadilly. We are delighted to welcome Harlan Coben tonight to celebrate the publication of his latest novel, I Will Find You. From the best-selling author of The Match and Tell No One comes a twist-laden page-turner of the highest order, as a man wrongly convicted of killing his son escapes from prison to find out the truth. Your host for tonight is Richard Armitage, multi-award-winning stage and screen actor appearing in several films and TV series. Richard starred in Harlan's Netflix series Stay Close and The Stranger. His debut thriller, Geneva, will be published in October. Please join me in welcoming them both to the stage.
Wow, this is weird. I got a waft of incense when I walked in. It was quite nice. Thanks for coming out on such a miserable evening, and hi everybody up there. This is great. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with some statistics, which you will know, but maybe you guys won't know this. So there are 8 TV shows currently on Netflix. There are 7 TV shows in development. All of your shows have hit #1 worldwide. I know this one because Harlan texted me when this happened. Stay Close achieved 54 million hours of viewing globally. And you currently...
Sorry, that's only the first 3 days.
That was the first 3 days. Texted me.
Thanks to you.
And you currently have 75 million books in print. So my first question is, how does it feel to be such an underachiever?
First of all, I think on behalf of Richard, thank you guys. It's just so great to see everybody out. This is my first time touring or appearing in public since 2019, so that so many of you are here and welcoming me. This is really weird being in this church. It's so beautiful, but I feel like someone's going to come and throw me out. So I'm just really delighted that you guys are here and that I get to hang with my pal, Richard Armitage, who is lucky to be here now because starting on Monday, I have him working on the new show Fool Me Once, which I'm sure we'll talk about. So he has to actually go to work now.
I'm interviewing my boss. Harlan has given me a lot of work over the past 4 years now.
Yes, and 3 years. Somebody out there probably knows better than we do when The Stranger first came out, but it's delightful to be here. And those numbers are embarrassing. Most of them are true, but I'm just thrilled to be here and looking forward to talking to you guys tonight.
What did little 11-year-old Harlan, who I actually imagine looks exactly like this but little, what did he dream about doing? Did you always want to write?
No. You know, writers say a lot of things that annoy me. One of the ones we always get is, there's always the writer, we sit there and he goes, I always knew I was going to be a writer. When I was a 3-month-old fetus, a pen formed in my mother's womb, and I started to scratch out sonatas, you know, like, and then even, my favorite, I was 6 years old, the children gathered around me in the playground as I told them pirate tales, and you get beaten up in my neighborhood for that, and I didn't grow up in a tough neighborhood. I was later in life. I was in my college, about 20, and I was working in the Costa del Sol of Spain, where some of you went on those Thompson vacations, remember back those? Torremolinos and Fuengirola and Benalmádena Costa. I was there working for Americans, not because I'm a brilliant linguist, but because my grandfather owned the travel agency. So he sent me down there for a summer. And Americans, by the way, are so ridiculously difficult on vacation. Like, we would drive for 4 hours through the mountains to Sevilla, and one of my clients would always say something like, you know, 3 hours ago, I was looking through my binoculars, and I saw a small church way in the distance. What's the name of that church? And expect you to know, and I would always go like San Maria de la Muerto. which means St. Mary of Lunch. I would just make shit up. So anyway, that's how, that experience, I wanted to write down. I said, someone should write a novel about this experience. And I did. I came back my senior year of college and I wrote an entire novel. And the novel was terrible and pretentious and pompous and self-absorbed and all the things that a first novel always is. And so, but then I got the writing bug from that. And I started to write what I love, which I call the novel of immersion. The novel that you take to bed tonight at 11 o'clock and say, I'm just going to read for 15 minutes. And next thing you know, it's 4 in the morning and you're cursing me out. I love that. That turns me on, seriously. So that's what I started to do.
I think that location is going to be in For Me Once, isn't it? That place in Spain, in Torremolinos. We're going to find the Church of Lunch, and we're going to shoot there. So, what happened to that first novel? Who did you send it to? Did anybody read it?
Yeah, probably somebody read it. It's somewhere in a drawer, and after I'm long gone, my children can then sell it. Here's the funny thing: like, when people write a novel, they expect it to sort of get published. But it was terrible. And my first 3 attempts at novels were really terrible. Because it's like if you could be Michael Jordan, and I put Michael Jordan on a basketball court and he's never played basketball before, even he's going to be terrible at it. So you have to learn. And I don't know why people think writing should be different than that. The more you write, the better you get at it. You have to hone your craft. Same thing with acting, right?
I still can't do it. I'm literally like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, this is interesting, because I'm curious if you have this too. So I have imposter syndrome. Do you have imposter syndrome?
Always.
See,
every day.
Every successful creator I know has, for those who don't know what we're talking about, we all think we suck. Only bad writers think they're good.
And you think everybody else is a million times better than you.
Only, every day, I always say that I'm writing the book, so I'm writing my book now. I'm writing a new book now. I'm like, oh my God, this is terrible. I've completely lost it. I was so good before. What happened? How'd I lose it? 5 minutes later, this is sheer genius. No one's going to give this a chance because it's going to read this book. And that kind of insecurity, don't you think that's part of the creative process?
Yeah, and every job I come to the end of, I'm like, this will be the last time I ever work.
Yeah.
One day it will be the last time I ever work. But thanks to Harlan, not the case. So let's talk a little bit about I Will Find You.
Sure.
Where did the seed of inspiration come from for this particular story? Because I feel like the critics agree that this is almost like one of your best. It's like you're knocking it out of the park again.
Well, thank you. I agree with the critics when they're nice. That's right. I mean, I thought of this first sentence, which don't worry, I'm not going to read. I don't like doing readings. I find readings really boring. And you don't know if you should read something from the beginning, so you don't have to explain, or the middle or the end. It might be more exciting. So what I'm going to do is read you the entire novel. This is what came to my head. I am serving the 5th year of a life sentence for murdering my own child. Spoiler alert, I didn't do it. And that sentence came to me, I said, wow, how cool would it be? You start a book off with this guy who's just so low. I mean, imagine not only losing a child, but being accused of murdering that child, and he's in prison. He's given up on life, and now his sister-in-law, I'm not giving anything away, this is page 3, you know how I start, comes and visits him, and she has a photograph of some friends at an amusement park, and in the background, a boy is walking, they are both convinced is the son that he supposedly murdered 5 years earlier. And so as soon as I think of that kind of idea, I'm like, ooh, that's that Homer Simpson moment, the woohoo kind of a moment that we get as a writer. And that's how it starts. Then I have to think of how that can be. I get the beginning, I get the ending, I know almost nothing in between, and then I start on that journey.
So when I picked it up, I was praying that this would not be a role that I would covet as an actor, because I feel like I've had my fair share of the pie. He's been so generous to me, and I just thought, please don't let this be a role I want to play. And of course, you read that first line, and it is. And David Burrows is in prison. Obviously it's Prison Break. And the thing that captured me in those first few chapters was that detail of prison life and prison existence, and that thrilling moment where he kind of collaborates with the guards to get out. Did you do any research into this?
No.
So where did that come from? Have you been in prison?
Several times. But here, for those who want to write, I will be the only author who will give you this advice, and that is don't do any research. I know every other author tells you that. I know you did for Geneva. We'll talk about that in a minute. But here's why I give that advice, don't do any research, for people who are trying to write. First of all, research is a lot more fun than writing. So you'll use an excuse not to write. It's like, oh, I want to write the scene in Park Avenue, New York. First, I have to go to Park Avenue. I have to smell the hot dog stands. I have to watch the people walk by. No, you know what it's like. You have an imagination. Write it now. Don't let research be an excuse not to write, because researching is not writing. Creating characters is not writing. Outlining is not writing. Reading somebody else's book is not writing. Hanging in Starbucks with your writer friends, not writing. Only writing is writing, right? So that's number one. Reason two is most writers start to fall in love with the research. So you ever read that book where the writers fall in love with it, and so he's slowing it down with a lot of factoids? Not a problem with me, because I don't know anything. I'm on a need-to-know basis. So I do recommend, for new people, I'm not writing a book about 17th century Afghanistan, yeah. But other than that, if you're writing a current book, try to do as little research as possible. Sorry, am I blowing?
No.
Why did that disturb you?
So I have a confession to make. So when I came up with the idea for my little piece of writing, I thought I was salivating over the fact that, oh, I get to go and do a research trip on a mountain so I can do some skiing for free and, and sort of expense the flight. But,
I do that also, but I understand.
The problem was that my plan kind of went astray because I couldn't go during ski season. I actually had to write first and do the research at the end, but I was determined to do it because I just wanted to just do what I had set out to do. But I think you were right. I actually think it was better to just go into the reaches of your brain rather than do that thing that you're talking about.
And that way you do the research fitting what you're doing rather than, there's a, Sherlock Holmes has that great saying where you don't theorize before you have facts, because you twist facts to suit theories rather than the other way around. It's the same thing. You start twisting your story to suit whatever research you have. Write it and then worry about the research. No one else will tell you that, by the way. A lot of you have been to a lot of signings, right? The writer loves to tell you about the research. I'm telling you not to, just because I want to be different.
We're similar age, aren't we?
No, I'm a lot older. I'm older than you.
Did you grow up with a lot of TV?
Yeah, of course.
Because I really didn't. We had about 2 channels in England.
Well, we had 3 channels in America, but it's all I watched.
but where did your imagination come from? Was it from TV, or was it from reading brilliant books? Or
it's both. Another thing that writers always say that annoys me when we get who influenced your work, and it's always like, oh, Proust, Dostoevsky. I grew up with TV. We all did. So of course, TV influences how I see the world and how I tell stories and how I write novels. Oscar and Felix and Batman and Robin were as big an influence as Dostoevsky or Wilde or Dumas, all of whom I read and all of whom I love. So that's part of the world today.
Yeah. It's more to do with where your imagination is formed. I think if it's formed by receiving other people's story or images, because I do quite, I'm sort of studying myself a little bit of like, am I stealing someone else's idea here, or where are my influences, and trying to get back to like a kind of innocent place where you haven't been influenced. And I'm influenced by Hitchcock in terms of what I like to watch,
right.
And I'm influenced by Harlan Coben because that's what I do for a living. So, but I feel like you've got a couple of signatures that you enjoy riffing on, like a jazz guitarist. And I know this from kind of performing a character, because when you're assembling your work on the character and looking into, what path is this character going to take on The Stranger, and actually having read other pieces and the 3 stories that I'm going to take part in, I feel like family secrets is something that you're really curious about. Yeah. Does that come from something personal, or is it just something that you're kind of like an itch you've got to scratch?
It's both. First of all, I think secrets are fascinating, and family's fascinating, right? And we all have secrets. One of the great, and I've discussed this in several books, and it really is an influence on me, but one of the great things that we know about human condition is that we all think that we are uniquely complex and nobody can read us, but we can read others, right? You kind of think, people think they kind of know what I'm thinking and going on, but not really, but I think what they do. And of course, that can't be true, and it isn't true. And In an empathetic way, one of the things I've taught my kids is every human being that you meet, just think this when you meet somebody, they all have hopes and dreams. It's a very simple sentence. Everyone you meet, everyone here tonight, all of us have hopes and dreams. And it brings somebody to life and gives them an inner life. Every time I see a house, the door, and a family lives inside of it, that's a separate continent. You may think you know what's going on in that house, but the same way people don't really know what's going on in yours, you really don't. And so playing around with this, number one, it's really kind of interesting and great fodder, but two, we all relate to this. Because, if I ask somebody in this room, would you kill somebody? You'd say no. Well, maybe not that guy. But the rest of you would say no. But if I ask you, would you kill someone to save your child's life? Now the answer is yes. So where is that line? I want to get as close to that line when I write a story as I can. What I put Adam through in The Stranger was a good example of that. How far could I push him before he would crack?
So it was kind of the thing that made me sit up straight when I got that first script from you. And I was really torn between, should I read the book? Because I was really desperate to, but I just thought, stay with the screenplay. And what happens, for anyone that hasn't seen it, is that in the first scene of the book and the show, this character of Adam Price is approached by somebody in a bar who tells him to check his wife's search history on the computer because she's done something that is deceptive towards him. And actually he does follow that advice, and he finds a kind of website of how to fake your own pregnancy. So this machinery in his mind starts to escalate, and his paranoia kicks in that his children are not his, and that Corinne has lied to him. I feel that's another itch you're really interested in scratching till it bleeds, which is technology and the footprint that you leave when you use it.
Well, the idea for that came when I read an article on a fake a pregnancy website. And at that time, I think people were more using it like to pretend to get people to marry them or whatever else we're doing it. And I was thinking, what can I do that's different? What can I do unique? And I was thinking again about myself, happily married, several kids. Suppose I found out that my wife had done something. Now and then I realized there's so many secrets that we have online that we think are secret, but of course on every website, there is a human being behind that website who's going to know the answers. What if I created a character who would just be able to drop these bombs on people's life and feel it's their moral obligation to, which is what The Stranger felt, and then watching the repercussions through one man, Adam Price, and what happens to him and the disastrous effects. And you can decide at the end, was The Stranger right to reveal the secrets? Are we better off keeping those secrets? I never like to answer those questions. I like to raise them and mess around with them, and then see what happens.
And it's impossible for us, I lived half of my life without technology, and I kind of crave a time when it wasn't there, but it's impossible for us now to even conceive of life without it. But in terms of storytelling, it's the bane of your life as an actor when you open a scene, which is so brilliant, and then you realize they're on the phone to each other, so you're not going to get to look into the eyes of the scene partner. And I always am like, can we just get that off a phone call and into sort of in-person interview? But at the same time, as happens in this book, is that it's such a useful tool for being able to trace people, for using hidden cameras like the nanny cam in For Me Once. Yeah. I understand why you're obsessed with scratching the itch, and I feel like it's only going to go further. But do you crave a time when it was like,
sure,
no phones?
Yeah, the old days, there'd be that scene in the movie you'd always see. Remember, like the phone would be ringing in the house, and see the phone ringing, and pick up, somebody pick up, and of course nobody. That's just, you can't do it today. But the whole thing for me is, my books are modern day. My books take place today in the present world, so I have to reflect what's here. I can't have somebody going on a date and not Googling the guy. That just wouldn't make sense. When I first started, like when I did Myron Bolitar, I remember in the early 90s, mid-90s, I had this idea that when Myron would get in a dangerous situation, he would call Win on his cell phone so Win could listen in. And that was cutting-edge technology now. Now I might as well have two strings in a can, strings in two cans. So things change, but I'm just trying to, the technology in my book is never cutting edge. I don't really know that much about it. It's just what we all live with, and so I have to accept that as the reality.
Well, I was just, about a week or so ago, I finally, I'm sorry to say, because I think I've lied to you about this in the past, I finally watched Tell No One, because I hadn't seen it before, which was really the game changer for you in terms of book-to-screen adaptation. It was sort of the French film, the first movie, and there's a scene in that where he sees his dead wife on a surveillance camera, which is sort of that early, because at that time it was really not as prolific as it is now. And it still holds up. Like in that movie, you're kind of electrified by what this character has seen. Did you have any idea at that point when this movie kind of exploded onto the scene that the rest of your life was going to take this course?
No. It's worked out better than I ever really expected. I was in France once, and not that long ago, and they said to me, well, was one of your dreams to have a #1 selling book in France? Like, whoa, dude, that's so far beyond anything I would ever have allowed myself. I hope to maybe one day be in France holding a copy of my book, nonetheless be able to sell it. But if I could, like the idea for Tell No One, which is how I always come up with sort of ideas. This is an ugly thing. It's like I always say, a novel is a little bit like a sausage. You might like the final taste. You probably don't want how it was made. But the idea for, because it was new technology, came to me. This is what I mean by you'll find anything can stimulate an idea. So I'm sitting at home and I'm watching a really crummy romance movie on TV. I won't mention the name of the movie, Message in a Bottle. And what struck me about that movie, this is being made a lot, like in the late, Nicholas Sparks, a good friend of mine, so nobody say anything, okay? But what struck me about that was we had those movies where the man lost his wife and he couldn't go on, and then a hot babe walked by and he was fine. Have you noticed that lady in these movies? And I said to myself in those moments, I get serious, what about the man who can't go on? What about the man who's truly lost his soulmate? Is there a way I can find redemption for him? So I have this part of the idea, and it's over here. The second part of the idea is I lost my parents at a young age. They were both dead by the time they were my age, and I miss them greatly. When I write the Myron Bolitar books and his parents are there, his parents are what I imagine, he has a relationship with his parents that I imagine I would have had my parents survive. So I know I get overly sentimental, tough. You don't like them, skip them. They're my therapy. Leave me alone. But I'm sitting there and I have very young kids at the time, and I'm thinking, wouldn't it be, you know, I'm looking at a street cam that just had started for traffic, and I'm thinking, you know, wouldn't it be great if I could see my parents again? Wouldn't it be great if my parents could have met my kids? Same way you all had something like that. And I think, what would I do if I saw my parents right now on this webcam? So I took these two ideas and I smashed them together. Man and a woman, happily married. Wife is murdered, 8 years pass. He can't get over her death. He clicks an email, he sees a hyperlink, and his dead wife walks by. And Homer Simpson again, woo! You know, part of my brain comes up. And so that's how I started with the technology and coming up with the idea.
Are you quite disciplined? Do you have like a writing place and time, or like are you structured?
I'm not disciplined, I'm obsessed, which is different. I'm like, my work habits are sloppy. And most writers you know have a place that they, right? I don't know when you did Geneva, if you had the same thing, you have like a desk, and John Grisham, for example, has a little hut outside of his cottage, outside of his house. He has no internet, he gets there at 6 in the morning, he's very regimented. I'm not. I can write any place or anywhere. I use up places, and I do whatever is going. I live my life this way. If it helps me write, good. If it doesn't help me write, bad. So to me, it's like so Starbucks, whatever it is. I ride the horse until that horse dies, and then I look for a new horse. So like for a while, I was writing in a supermarket near me. The supermarket had like a table serving coffee right near the deli counter. I came home smelling like olive loaf, but that worked for like three or 4 months. And my best example is when I was writing The End of the Stranger, so I think I told you the story. So I'm taking an Uber for the first time into New York City. So this is 10 or 12 years ago, whenever I wrote the book. And I'm feeling guilty about spending the money. You know, it's like I'm trying to justify it in my head, like, oh, it costs $50 just to park in New York City. But anyway, I'm sitting in the back, and I'm feeling guilty about it. And I take my pen and paper out, and I start to write. And I wrote really well. So for 3 weeks, I just took Ubers everywhere I went. And I finished the book in the back of an Uber. I just sat there doing that. whatever makes me write, I do until it's not working, and I will sacrifice anything. God forbid, I hope when I fly home, I don't write really well on the plane, because all of a sudden I'll start taking plane trips just to write. I will do anything I can to get those words down on paper.
And is that, I'm assuming you're on a keyboard?
No, I do both. I do hand to paper first draft usually.
With a pen?
Yeah, so I do hand to paper, pen to paper, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I
Wipe your finger off and write in blood.
But I'll do even that to write. So about every 10 to 15 pages, I'll do first. I do on paper. And here's, first of all, do whatever is going to make you produce pages. You ask 10 writers how they do it, you get 11 different answers. But the reason I do it is there's something childlike and freeing about pen to paper. When you delete something, it's not gone. It's just crossed out. I can still do it. I can draw arrows. I can put things all over the place. And I don't count them as done pages until I put it in the computer. So already my first draft is my second draft. So I think it out on paper. Sometimes it'll just be, if I was doing the scene you're talking about, I would just say, stranger and Adam in the bar. I would do the dialogue that you guys would have. I wouldn't do everything. That would be it. And then I would bring it to life. So I recommend this, by the way. It's worked for me for a long time. But then sometimes I will just go write on the computer if that's going to make me write. Again, anything. The problem with trying to be a writer, and you're probably experiencing this when you're trying to do this, is paralysis. You think you suck, you hate yourself, every word you write is terrible. So you have to give yourself permission to suck. The most important thing to get down is a first draft. I always say, you can always fix bad pages, you can't fix no pages. So get it down, rewrite it. I don't know any, Rob, do you rewrite?
Exactly the same too.
Yeah, so every Rob's a writer who's sitting here, a friend of mine and a writer. So every writer that I know rewrites a lot and edits a lot. All of them. There's this one guy, but we don't like him. You know what I mean? He's a liar. We all rewrite a lot. When I write, I don't go like this. I write kind of like this, where each day I go back and I reread what I did the day before. And it's usually not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but I rewrite it. You're taking the ugly diamond out of the ground when you're in a cave, but that's where the value is, but no one wants to look at that. It's when you edit it and turn it into something people want to watch or read.
And at the end of the book,
yeah.
Like in Misery when he has a cigarette and then gets hit in the face with an iron, do you have like a ritual like that for the final, I'm done?
I'm so happy when I'm done.
My
new thing is I type the words "the end" and a bunch of exclamation points. Sometimes I write the fucking end and I put it on Instagram or something like that, just so I don't want to go back and not think it's over, to celebrate it. I really celebrate that moment. When I write a book, so for this book, for example, it takes about 9 months to write a book. I compare it to childbirth. The best part is the idea. This guy didn't get it. Someone explain it. And ladies, you can help me here. Some days you feel great and you're glowing. Some days you feel like there's a dump truck parked immediately on your bladder. And at the very end, you just want the damn thing out. You know what I mean? So, so if it's 400 pages long, at the 8-month mark, I'll maybe be on page 200. And the last month, I will write at least 200 pages. And I finish the last 30 to 40 pages in one day. So when you read the last 30, I wrote it in one time. I grow a playoff beard, which has now become a book tour beard. My kids are afraid of me, I don't wash, like they come and throw daddy a banana and then we'll run, like that. It becomes a really ugly thing, and that's how I always sort of finish a book.
And of course, that end is really just the beginning, because then you have to go into editing and all of this.
Yes.
My
whole publishing house is here right now. So, but because of the way I write, and then every 50 pages I go back to the start. But when I finish my first draft, chapter 1's probably been rewritten 10 times already. So it's pretty clean. And the ending, just because I write it so quickly and I've seen it for so long in my head, part of writing is you actually write it before you sit down to write it. I write very, very fast because I've already seen it. I've worked out in my head how it's going to go. So when I sit down, I can explode through it. The last part doesn't need as much rewriting.
And do you have any ritual of a special whiskey, or I'm just trying to think of something I can buy you as a thank you? Do you crack open a bottle of?
Well, it's funny.
Do you do anything do you celebrate with a thing?
I have a serious character named Myron Bolitar who drinks this terrible chocolate soda called Yoo-Hoo. And people often ask me about this Yoo-Hoo drink, which I don't like or drink, and I put it in books, so Yoo-Hoo started to send me free Yoo-Hoo. I'm like, why didn't I have him drinking like Macallan's 25-year-old scotch? What the hell's wrong with me? That was really stupid.
That's what you're going to get as a gift.
There you go, Macallan's 25-year-old scotch. No. I do like a good scotch, but I don't have a ritual. My normal celebration is I try to celebrate all the good moments, by the way. As you know, with our show, I celebrate when we finish. I celebrate when it comes out. I celebrate when Netflix gives those rankings and we're happy with it. Yeah. I try to celebrate all of that while looking ahead for the next one.
And it's tricky when you get stuck into superstitious things like lucky pants.
Do you do that? Do you have something?
No, it's a trap.
Okay, good. Anything you want to talk about?
You can't keep wearing the lucky pants like 20 years later. It's just, just going back to book-to-screen adaptations. So I feel like you found the dream team in Nicola Schindler, Richard Fee, Danny Brocklehurst up in Manchester. It's almost like, it feels like my family, let alone you. Yeah. When you come together, how are you, I don't know, I'm imagining you in like a little secret burrow trying to choose what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
How does that discussion happen, and what are you going to do next?
Well, Fool Me Once,
starring
Michelle Keegan, Joanna Lumley, Adil Akhtar, and Richard Armitage. For the third time, Richard Armitage.
It's the hat trick.
It's become, maybe that's my lucky charm. Richard Armitage.
I'm the lucky pants.
But that's to say, that's my tradition, and we've had incredible success with Richard at the helm for The Stranger and Stay Close. And one of the challenges of working with Richard, of course, is he wants something new as an actor. We want something new. So when we first decided we wanted to have Richard back again, which is kind of unheard of, I didn't want you to think, oh, that's Adam Price from the other show. And to his credit, the character was quite different, but just subtly, what you're able to subtly, I did not hear one person say to me, oh, that's the guy from The Stranger. Or why is the guy from The Stranger back? It was, except for your huge fans who were happy about it, no one had an issue with it. And I think the same thing is going to happen with Joe in Fool Me Once, where the character is different enough, and you don't have to put on I don't have to get him prosthetics. It's not like Marlon Brando going to stick things in his mouth.
Oh no, that's what I was going to do.
Dang, spoil it. But to your credit, you're a great actor, and I love working with you for that reason. You bring a certain humanity to the characters, no matter what, and all three characters have been different enough that you're satisfied creatively as well. I hope.
Nearly satisfied, because what happens when you adapt screen to book to screen, and this is where Charlotte comes in, because I want to talk about how brilliant she's been on this is Harlan's daughter, who's also writes some of the episodes. She wrote on The Stranger, she wrote on Stay Close, and she brings something really fabulous to the world. And I feel like when you're kind of plotting what you're going to do in the TV or film version, you kind of bring in a whole extra lane of subplot, which kind of tightens up the story, and you get this massive reveal, which if you have read the book, there's something more in the TV show. And Charlotte was quite key in some of that work. So my question is, I've only read episodes 1 to 3 of Fool Me Once. Yeah. Is there a massive plot twist, and am I in it?
No. No. Okay. Actually, it's funny, because what's interesting about TV, too, is always a work in progress. So Charlotte and I just did this show in America called Shelter, which is based off my young adult Mickey Bolitar series that we filmed, and Charlotte and I were the two writers on it. And this was not necessarily creative, but every actor caught COVID during the show and was out for key scenes. And I'm not giving too much away, but so Mickey Bolitar, it's supposed to be a big scene in one of the late episodes where he comes to wins the big basketball game for them. And the guy got COVID, and I'm like, well, we're just gonna have to postpone it. And they're like, budget, we're done. So we had to actually rewrite the scene without him in it. And it ended up being better. I can't describe why, but the same thing we're still doing. I'm still tinkering. You're filming now the first block, 1 through 3, episodes 1 through 3. It'll be 8 episodes altogether. I'm still tinkering with 7 and 8. Danny and I and Richard and Nicola are still tinkering to the last second, and sometimes when you start to see the actors you start writing toward them. You know, I was watching Adil Akhtar playing his role, and I was thinking, oh, you know, it would be interesting for this actor to have this kind of a part too. And I wanted to get scenes, like how do I get these two actors in the same room together, you know, because I just think they would be dynamite. So it's constantly, we're constantly sort of adjusting. There is a twist with you, but I'm not going to tell you what it is.
I think I might know. I'm a firm believer in use everything that comes at you, whether it's good or bad. You know, sometimes you have a kind of edgy relationship with somebody offset that you think, I've just got to use it. And, you know, COVID was really interesting because we shot Stay Close sort of at the end of COVID as things we started in a bubble of shutdown, and as we were coming to the end of the shoot, the world was opening, but we had to remain in our bubble. But weirdly, the isolation that Ray Levine was forced into because of COVID was actually really useful. So I'm kind of with you on that. It's like, if a problem arises, an obstacle in the road, you know, use it. And
how many times have you been on a set or a show where you had a setting someplace and that for some reason that closed down? We had that a lot with the ruins that we used, for example, in for those who watch Stay Close, there was murders by these ruins. We actually had a whole different cool locale, and instead we ended up with this one wall, and we had to film kind of around that thing.
There's a story about that as well, because going back to don't do any research, of course I'd done a load of research, and I got Daniel to show me the kind of location and the map of this ruin that we'd incorporated into Ray's tattoos. But then of course the location changed, so I was like, we'll just hide that. We won't see that. But it's
when you're overthinking.
Yeah, when you overthink it. But I feel like we should be going to some
Q&A?
Audience questions. Does anybody have an audience?
There's a microphone coming to you. Just keep your hands up. There's people coming with microphones.
Hi, Harlan. Could you name one thing you enjoy about being a writer?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
Could you name one thing you enjoy about being a writer?
Name one thing you enjoy being a writer. This. Seriously, this. There's an old saying that's been credited to a lot of different people. I heard it with Dorothy Parker, I think mostly, and that is, I don't like writing, I like having written. And I think that's sort of true. Yes, there's moments I guess I feel bliss while I'm writing, I don't remember them. But this is the bliss. So like, this is what's so exciting right now. When I finish a book, it's not a book until you guys read it. So if what the actual...
That's the band.
All right, I like everything about writing. I'm only kidding. I like everything about writing. But the best part actually is when you guys take this home now, and David and all these characters, David and Cheryl and Rachel and Matthew all come to life in your head different from everybody else's, and that's still the part that jazzes me. You and I get to have this sort of one-on-one relationship. That's still my favorite part, is when the book gets released. You know, the writing can be blissful, but it's a little bit like, I don't know, some of you maybe paint. I hear this from my friends who paint. Oh, I love painting so much. But at the end of the day, if that canvas is still blank, did you love painting? Or is it about the creation? For me, it's about the creation. I love making this show that I'm going to be making with Richard, but it's when it's all done, and I can actually see it, that it really kind of becomes something I have to share with you for it to be real and meaningful to me. Otherwise, if I do it in the dark, you know, it's like saying, I was telling someone earlier, one of the other things writers say that annoy the crap out of me is when they say, I write only for myself. I don't care if anyone reads it. That's like saying, I talk only to myself. I don't care if anyone, writing's about communication. So if I write a book and no one reads it, I don't exist as a writer. I'm only a writer, I'm more a writer now today than when I'm actually writing. Does that sort of answer the question? Thank you.
Anybody else? Lady on the front row.
Hello. I think I'm going to start writing my sermons in cocktail bars from now on and expense
oh, like
it
you're not
to the
doing
church.
that now. Who are you trying to kid?
Hi, Harry. Sorry, Dibley, I had to. Just a quick question, and I have a vested interest, obviously, wearing a collar. have you ever thought about writing in a vicar? But because we get a really bad rap. Normally, we're dead soppy or we're obsessed with chocolates. So
have I ever thought of writing about a vicar?
Yeah.
Richard, maybe.
Hey, how's now?
I've heard about thinking about writing. First of all, as I mentioned, I'm a really lazy researcher. So if I know a vicar well, that will help. You know, for example, if you now I know you. When I wrote Tell No One, David Beck is an inner city pediatrician. By shocking coincidence, so is my wife. So my research was, honey, well, what would happen if? But I would love to one day write a vicar. I don't, but it would have to be something, you know, with a twist, right? You know, not a bad guy, because people have done a lot of bad guy vicars, but some kind of interesting angle on it. Now you're going to get my mind thinking about it. Yeah. Thank you. I'd love that.
Anybody else?
Doing a lot of hands. All right, microphone people, run over.
Maybe
wait.
Is there somebody upstairs?
There's a voice, Vicar, there's a voice coming from above.
Hello? Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. I was wondering, sometimes you have characters that appear in more than one book. Do you know right away that a character is going to appear in several books, or does that just occur to you later, or?
That's a really good question. For those who didn't hear, it's like that I have sometimes a character is in more than one book. Do I plan that ahead of time? I planned Myron to be a series. So when I sold Myron Bolitar, I had written all Deal Breaker in the first chapter of Drop Shot, and so I knew he was going to be a series. But Hester Krimstein, for example, she appeared, I think, in like a book in 1997 or 1998 for one scene only. And then she's really stubborn and won't leave my head. So she ends up in every book. When I need a cool lawyer, she's always there. And then when I wrote Boy from the Woods, I gave her her own story so that she could be elevated. It's never planned. They just sort of pop up. Sometimes it's a little Easter egg or a little wink to you people who know it well. You'll see Win in this book. For a brief second, he's mentioned. And even on the TV shows, if you pay attention, they visit the Bolitar Hotel, they go to the Windsor Horn Lockwood parking garage. I try to throw some of those in just for the fun of it, and also because I'm in the same world. My books, even though they're different characters or whatever else, they're in the same world. So someday Wilde might know Win, and we may see them together. I don't know. Thanks for asking.
Anybody else? Loads of hands up.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, do you ever get an idea for a new book while writing your present one? Do you get ideas for other books, and can you put it on hold, or are you tempted to go ahead and write the other book? How do you deal with the multiplicity of inspiration?
So the question is, do I ever get an idea for another book while I'm writing one book? Yes, but somehow it always ends up in the book I'm currently writing. So for example, when I was writing Win, I kind of had ideas I wanted to do like a heist like the famous Gardner Museum heist, stolen artwork. I wanted to write about a hoarder who was actually somebody famous. I wanted to write about 60s radicals, the Weather Underground, where one of the people had survived. I wanted to write about a Patty Hearst type kidnapping. 4 books, they're all in that same book. They all somehow fit into the book I'm currently writing. When I finish a book, it's similar to what Richard was sort of saying before. I am a boxer. I've thrown every punch that I've had, and I think I will never get another idea. That's it. Every book I'm done, I'm like, that was it. That was a really good idea, but that's your last idea. Thank you for playing You're a Writer. Now you're going to have to wake up in the morning and get a real job. We're going to get you to work at, like, you know, Marks and Spencer, and you're going to sell scissors now. And that sort of fear comes at me every single time I finish a book, that I'll never have another idea again. It's just because I'm completely empty. You have the same thing with acting, you were saying?
Yeah, all the time.
So like you think that you're never going to get another role?
Yeah,
or
so
you
I'm
think
always planning other careers that I can do when this phone stops ringing.
Isn't that the worst?
Yeah.
And we're not meant to do anything else.
No.
We're not good at anything else, are we, Richard?
But also, you're spinning a lot of plates right now.
Yes.
Because you're finishing and promoting this. You're working on our show, you're developing other shows. It's like, how do you keep all of those layers going? Like, because all of that is about the absorption and development of story. So how are you keeping it all in your
first of all,
filing cabinet?
for those who don't know, Richard wrote on his own a full novel, which an audiobook called Geneva, which is going to also be out in print. You can get it now on audible.com. It's going to be out with favor. No, my point is stay the hell off my lawn. You don't see me acting, do you?
Yes, we do.
You don't see me playing a role that's going to take roles away from you, do you?
He did.
Stay in your own lane, Richard.
I was like, would you mind reading it and giving me a little quote? He's like, yeah, I will, but stay in your lane. And it's funny because I actually believe that myself. I always get a bit like itchy when pop stars start acting and winning Oscars for it. And so, no, but I took a lot of inspiration from this man. And actually, you gave me some really brilliant advice about editing, which... do you remember what I asked you?
No.
Well, because I was quite heavily edited, and I found the process quite difficult. I had a brilliant editor, but it was very similar to having a very kind of strong-minded director who wanted to just move your arms and legs around, and I'd be like, can you just leave me alone to do my work? But you said you were quite lightly edited. She's here tonight. But,
yeah.
And you also said, I never put back anything that I've taken out, which I just thought was really brilliant.
So because this is kind of an interesting point. So when I'm writing a book, if I'm not sure about, when I'm rewriting it, if I'm not sure about a scene or a paragraph or whatever part of it, I will cut it out and I will put it in a file called spare, so I can always have it later. And if a book is 400 pages long, spare is usually between 50 to 75 pages of stuff that I'm not using, so I can always put it back. I've written, this is my 35th novel, and I've never to date ever put one thing back from the spare file. Not once. There's a lesson in there somewhere. No, you can always cut. Again, it's give credit to Hemingway or Faulkner. You have to kill all your darlings. It's really great advice. Yeah. In the editing room on the TV show too, sometimes I'm like, oh, I love that line. I love that scene, but it's just not working. It's not moving the story forward in some way. I'm sure you see it later on when you've done a scene. It's like, oh, I love that line. Where did it go?
That's why I don't watch the work.
Oh, you don't watch your own shows?
Because the stuff that you fall in love with gets cut, and you're like, wait a second, where did that whole scene go? And it's like, but the show's better for it.
Yeah, it is usually.
It's leaner and meaner.
It's usually.
Any other questions from the audience?
Lots of hands up. Yeah.
Throw the mic around on a bungee.
Hi there. I love all of your books. I like your standalones, and I like your series with...
She likes my books.
Yeah. So, a really selfish question. Are we going to get to see Myron and Win together again?
Questions, are we going to see Myron and Win together again? I'm writing that book right now. The next book... the next book is a Myron and Win, and I started... so Myron is back in the office where he doesn't have his old office because if you read Win, that office was taken, but he has another office space in Win's building. And as the book opens, he's on the phone with his parents, the ones I mentioned I base off mine, and they're living down in Florida now, and they're almost 80, and the father is telling Myron that he and Mom have discovered edibles. And that now and then Mom starts complaining that Dad's getting randy on the edibles, and Myron's like, so that's how the book opens. We'll see where it goes from there. But yeah, they'll be back, hopefully when I come back, maybe next year, we'll have a new Myron book. So I'm excited about it. Thanks for asking that question.
So you haven't stopped. You've finished the book, but you're already writing the other one.
Well, this one I finished a long time ago. I have to get started on the next one. So this book I probably finished, Selena, when did I finish this book? Like August, September, something like that? So I have to be done again by August or September, or she yells at me. So I'm not as far along as I should be. Don't tell her.
And there's a deadline. There's a deadline for the next one.
There's a deadline. Yeah. But it's sort of like, remember Gaddafi's line in the sand? It kind of moves every once in a while. But I'm usually pretty prompt. But it gets harder with the TV shows. It does.
Any other questions? Where's the mic? Over here,
which authors particularly helped you in terms of enhancing and developing your writing?
Which author helped develop my writing? I don't really know anymore. I mean, what's funny is I'm influenced by things, Richard had kind of mentioned this earlier a little bit. I'm not really influenced, especially anymore. I'm more inspired. An Ed Hopper painting, a Hitchcock movie, a Springsteen song. Anything can kind of, when I get that kind of weird feeling, I want to give you that same feeling. But you know, Raymond Chandler was an influence, obviously. Mary Higgins Clark, in terms of pacing, was an influence. Philip Roth, though you maybe don't see it, was an influence. I'm actually also influenced or inspired by things that aren't good, by seeing how somebody did something that I can see the mistake in. When I wrote my first one where I had a female lead, Just One Look, I was doing it in part because I'd read so many bad women in jeopardy novels, you know, the ones where the heroine is like really dumb, and she's like, gee, there's a serial killer loose in the woods. I think I'll rent a secluded cabin, not tell anybody where I'm going, and hang out in my bra and panties all day. I mean, please. In today's world, it was like frustrating me, and so I wanted to, there was a movie at the time on our, we have, I don't know if you have the network Lifetime here, Lifetime Network. So the name of the movie, it was starring a woman named Tori Spelling, who we often mistake with Meryl Streep in America. And it was called, I'm not making this up, and the title of the movie was, Mother, May I Sleep with Danger? No! This should be a very short film. And you know what's going to happen? She's going to rent that house out there. She's dating the bad guy. He's going to be chasing her down the stairs. And then my favorite, he's going to fall down the stairs. She's going to take a breath because no one survives falling down the stairs. He must be dead. He's going to come anyway. I was inspired by that crap to write Just One Look, where I would have a heroine who felt real, or in the case of Fool Me Once, Maya, who feels like somebody who's real. So you can be inspired or influenced by crap.
I wasn't texting. I was just. I promised I would do this because I put out.
It's porn. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
The vicar's laughing the hardest at that. I love it.
I put out a little hashtag. I promised I would ask some questions from people that can't be here. I put out a hashtag Hasselharlan. Okay. Hasselharlan. So we've got a couple of ones that I'm just going to jump in. This one is from somebody called She-Ra, who says, since current events right now seem stranger than... Do either of you currently have any hints about novels stirring that started with recent news or trends?
You can take that one first.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of irresistible, especially right now, because what's going on out there is bonkers. But I was also warned to be quite careful about drawing directly from the news, because by the time you've finished your book or you've got your TV show into development, which is probably 5 to 10 years, things may have considerably changed, so you can really dig yourself into a hole and waste a lot of time and money. But how do you feel?
No. Next question.
Okay. Next question.
Hi, Harlan. I have 2 questions. The first one I have is, yesterday I was contacted by somebody called Harlan Coben, who asked me if I would buy him a gift card. I just need to check in case I got it wrong. Do you need to borrow some money? I might have got it wrong.
That's Richard spanning
He might not
his
be a
legs,
scammer. Now, my real question is, you mentioned earlier that you've written 35 books. Have you ever sat down to write a new book and gone, right, and then thought, hang on, this sounds familiar. I wrote this in book 3. Have you ever had to rethink because you're repeating yourself?
Do I write something and then I already had it in another book? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
I think I do that, and you guys are too kind to tell me. And I appreciate that, really. There are, in a way, I look at writing, okay, picture a giant field with really tall grass. And so you're slicing through that, the first time you're writing a novel, you're slicing through that grass to get to the other side to write your novel. And you have no idea how far this grass field goes. And you have no idea if you're going in the right direction or if you'll ever get to the end. It might just be a maze where you'll never get out of it. You finally reach the end. Now you come back to the start to write again. Well, it's going to be a little easier maybe because you do know a little bit about where you're going, but you can't take that path that you took before. You have to find a whole new path. There are times I've written 35 novels, and they're pretty plot heavy, a lot of twists. There's not a crime I haven't done. So in a sense, it's trying to find a new angle on it. Like in this book, without giving anything away, after the prison break, how do I say without giving anything away? I kind of give you a major answer that normally, if I'd written a book 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I would have waited to the very, very end, and I give it to you very early. But by doing that, I want to create a new set of questions. So I'm always trying to do something different. It may be a man, it may be a woman. I'll change where it's from. This is part first person, part third person. You're always looking to change things up, but I'm sure I do repeat, and I appreciate you guys not telling me. That's really sweet.
Have you ever written a crime about a writer who poisons an actor with water?
Yes.
Next question. There we go, right in the corner.
Hello. I just wanted to ask, do you ever have any difficulty with transposition of location? Because you seem to me as a very American writer. So how does New Jersey become Manchester? And do you have to make any changes to the characteristics of the act of the characters because we behave slightly differently?
That's a great question about adaptations. My books take place for the most part in New Jersey. I've done adaptations in Manchester, Paris, Warsaw, Poland, Barcelona, Spain. I've had it all over. Done Munich, Germany. First of all, I like doing this. I think that it strengthens the story. Now, I've done one in my home state of New Jersey just now. I like the hybrid. I think the worst adaptations stay slavishly devoted to the text. If you really want the exact experience of the book, read the book. If you're the kind of, I know it angers some people who read the book and like, that's not exactly how I saw it. I'm not your guide. When we were doing The Stranger, it was my idea because we had, the Stranger in the book is a man. And I was working on after watching Richard a bit, and I was thinking, that scene with another guy, another white guy, frankly, coming in and talking to him the same is not going to have the visual dynamic that Hannah John Kamen brought to that scene. It made the scene better. It's visual. It's a visual medium. So I changed the character. It was my decision. It wasn't something forced on me. I was the one who came up with it. After trying, we auditioned some guys for it. It just wasn't landing. I didn't think that would work as well with the dynamic that Richard and Hannah ended up having. And it's the same thing with Destinations. I like to try to fit the story in different things. Of course, it's going to change it by having it. But it's going to, that hybrid, I think in the end, may make it more interesting, and it gives me more variety. For those who have seen like The Stranger and Stay Close, maybe you haven't seen The Innocent, which was a Netflix Spain show. Really different, very, very dark. There's no humor whatsoever, more quote-unquote critically acclaimed. Poland has a whole different take on it, and I've really enjoyed being able to do that. I make a lot of changes, and Richard knows this, that I'm never married to what the book is. I try, and I hope Richard agrees, I try to be pretty generous in terms of, I want to hear their opinions. Actors, one thing I'll say actors get a bad rap for, actors by and large are much more intelligent than most people give and really kind of get their characters in an intuitive way. I don't know too many really good actors who are dumb. I really mean that. I don't. The best actors have an inner intelligence that brings it out. So if Richard comes to me and says, you know, that line for me is, I think this line might be better or whatever else, I'm not precious about it. I'm always listening. I think that that's part of the way it is. And Richard, not to embarrass you here a little bit, but Richard really gives me a long write-up oftentimes with email of ideas that he has for his character, and we've used a lot of those ideas. And I think that's part of the fun collaboration that you get with it. I can be a complete dictator here, so I hope you think I'm collaborative in terms of what we do. How do you take this question?
It's a really good question, actually, and I have to say that I feel like you're a bit of an Anglophile, and when you go off and have an affair with France or Spain or Poland or Amazon, it's like, why are you cheating on us? You belong to us. I asked him out there, I was like, when are you going to buy a place in England? Because it's like, it feels like the home that you love. But of course, they have the right to kind of do whatever they want, and they're brilliantly successful. And actually, there's a part of me that thinks it all began in that Tell No One.
Tell No One.
Yeah. So that's great.
Notice you didn't say I was really collaborative or anything like that. You caught that, right?
He is extremely collaborative. He is one of the. He has a sort of democratic ear, so you sort of really listen to everybody. And
I think it helps. I actually do. Everything I do is slave to the story. I mean, I'll be abusive, I'll be mean or nice. But I'm never abusive. But all I care about is how good the story is. So I don't care who comes up with the idea. It's a team like a soccer team, or you don't care who scores the goal right when you're going for the World Cup. You just want to win. And so I'm never precious, and I always find the writers who are most precious are usually the worst writers. They're a little bit intimidated, or they're insecure enough that they don't want to change what they did.
And that extends into everything that you do in terms of adaptation, is that you're really, rather than just being like taking your hands off the wheel, you actually get very excited about the changes that are going to be made, the extra plotting, or the differences to the plot and the story. And I think that excitement infuses everyone that you work with. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'll remember that. Thank you.
Come back.
Thank you.
I feel like a couple more. We got time for more?
Two more questions, let these nice people go home?
Hiya.
Are you up there? Okay. Where is it? Go on then.
Hiya.
Okay. So will somebody call on me? So that way we don't have to call anybody and get in trouble.
So I think I've got a question it could apply to both of you. Hi. What would be your favorite part about the crafting process? Would it be the drafting, your character creation? Would it be the editing? Or pushing it to print? What would be your favorite part?
I'll take it first, I guess. When I was describing to you how I came up with the idea for Tell No One, there's times every once in a while where something just clicks and falls into place. When I realized the ending of The Stranger, even when we were filming it, I'm curious how you felt when you guys were doing that major scene out in the woods that I know was torturous in a way for you guys. Those are the moments when you have that kind of emotional high. That's my favorite. When I know I'm dropping the dime on you, when I know you're going to gasp out loud at that surprise that I'm going to give you, that's kind of my favorite moments to write. But I will tell you this, and this sounds corny. At the end of the book, this book especially, I did this. As I was writing the last couple chapters, I didn't realize till later, my face is wet with tears. I get really emotional, when he's finally going to find out the truth about what happened to his son, one way or the other. I'm getting emotional. And when Adam was finding out the truth about what happened to Corinne, when I wrote that scene, I was really getting emotional. When James Nesbitt found out what happened to his relationship with Sarah Parrish in that show, I'm using the shows as examples, but of course when I wrote the scenes in the book, I actually do physically cry. I don't even notice I'm doing it. I'm just sitting there with tears running down my face. So I do really kind of get into it in that way. Those are my favorite moments. How about you?
I think it's going to tie in exactly to what you've just said, because without even consciously doing it, my brain goes to character first, because you get that response from not only a writer, but from an audience, and from inside a character. You are lining yourself up and empathizing with their situation, whatever the plot may be. And I think one of the most exciting things, certainly from coming at it in a different way, is perceiving of a character and then forcing them to do things that they really shouldn't be doing or don't want to do, and dropping them from a great height. I find that very fulfilling.
Yeah, cool. Great question, thank you. I think we have time for one more. Oh, I don't know. She's running up at the microphone. We'll do one, and then we'll do yours, and then we'll finish up. And I'll let you nice people go.
Hello. You've sold millions of books. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How important are book tours for you now? You've got such a big name.
How
important are book tours? And part two. Do you recommend them for debut novelists? Just putting it out.
Hey, are you a debut novelist? Are you? Oh, for Richard. Well, he's high profile, so he doesn't go through the stuff that I had to go through when I first started out. But they're hoping you're going to go on book tour, Richard.
You have to do it as well. It's like I've seen it's painstaking. You are at the end of your tether.
It's the Harlan the Whore tour.
Yeah.
Black T-shirts to come. I actually don't know in my case how important they are. As my publishers behind are saying, very important. And I haven't done one in 4 years. There's a song called Same Old Lang Syne by Dan Fogelberg. It comes on every Christmas. Everyone talks about meeting his old lover in the grocery store. And there's a line in that song where he says, the audience is heavenly, but the traveling is hell. I mean, I love being here with you people. I could talk to you guys all night, but I don't like every day being on a plane and being in a hotel room and missing my little dogs and all that stuff. So I don't know how important it is. I think it was much more important when I was younger and newer than it is now. But it's also part of the ecosystem. You hope that you're selling more books and that bookstores are doing better, and maybe it helps other writers that are here. Maybe you'll be introduced to, they'll get new writers, they can afford to have other writers come. So it's part of the ecosystem, I think, for me to do this, and so I feel an obligation to help out in that way too. And this has been, again, this is not also hard work. Having you people come here and ask me questions and want your book signed, that's not hard work. It's really delightful to see all of you. But I don't know how important it is in terms of, would I be still in the same place on the bestseller list? I don't know. I think so, but I don't know. But thank you.
One last one.
This last question here.
Thank you for being here. I'm a huge fan since 2003. Thank you for what you do.
She's a huge fan since 2003.
Again. Since you have quite a few novels written, do you remember all of them? The characters, the plots, and everything. And the follow-up question: do you have a favorite one?
Do I remember all of them? No. It's funny, when I was reading The Innocent for the TV series and we were adapting it, I'm like, in the middle of it, I'm like, where am I going with this? I'm like, who is this character? I mean, I remember the end, but I'm like, who is this character? And it took me a little while to do it. What's my favorite book? I Will Find You, now available in hardcover. Thanks, everybody, very much. Richard, thank you, my friend. Pretty bad. Give me a hug.
Amazing. Really good. Thanks, everybody.
Do you have to make an announcement? Oh, we have to post it. Thank you.
This is my publicist, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I think Harlan's got some signing to do.
Absolutely massive.
What's the rules? Here's the rules person.
A massive thank you to Harlan and Richard for tonight. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. There will be a signing taking place tonight. If you would like to stay, please can I ask you all to stay in your seats, including the balcony. Someone will be up to let you know when it's time to come up for the signing. There will be the opportunity to take photos with Harlan, so please make sure you have your phones ready. And if you would like any other copies, please head to the bookstall. It will be closing at 9 o'clock.